This is Simply Lo-Fi, and you're listening to the expert with a heart.
Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Ahalya here, keeping you company on a brand new episode of Simply Lo-Fi. Now, today we're discussing something really exciting. And Lo-Fi, our expert with a heart, pointed out that I say this every single time. But truly, today we're talking about youth financial planning. And this is a conversation perfect for anybody who's hoping to get started on their financial planning journey or right at the beginning. So if we've caught you there, stay put, because it's going to be a good, insightful conversation with lots of practical tips and insights to help us. We've got, of course, Lo-Fi Nablaki, our expert with a heart, and CEO and MD of International Money Matters Private Limited. And we've also got joining us on the show today Navya Karanth, who is the Senior Manager of Financial Planning and Corporate Partnerships. Welcome, Navya. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Ahalya.
All right, so let's get this conversation started. I want to open up with an experiential question, which I was very excited to ask both of you. When did you start your financial planning journeys, and what was the first habit that, went into that journey that you continue even till today? Navya, go for it.
Yeah, so my first financial planning journey started with my first job. Okay, so that was a time when my salary was really very low. And my dad forced me to open an RD, which is recurring deposit, and he made me invest 3,000 into it. Okay. And yes, I was left hardly with anything to spend, with my friends, like eating out or dining. But I made sure that the RD continued.
Okay.
So that's how my journey started. So the one habit I would say is that consistent savings that I've been maintaining since then. And the second important habit that I've been doing is upgrading my savings, which is whenever there is any income hike, I make sure that my savings also increases.
Nice. Okay. See, already two very good strategies. Lo-Fi, what about you?
So, I think the first time that I actually had an exposure to financial planning was way much later than what anyone should look at, which was almost when I was close to 40.
Okay.
And I was told that, I should write down the age of my younger child. And they told me, they did a calculation and said, this is what you need to save every month to educate him. And the amount that they wanted me to save was more than what I was earning. And I said, oh no, I wish somebody had told me 10 years ago what to do.
Yeah.
So I think 10 years back, it was a lot to do with, because of my exposure to finance, it was a lot to do with analyzing things. So I would buy 2 stocks, sell them after 3 weeks and say, wow, I made 45% per annum, but it would be a really tiny sum of money. But that's how I started. And I think the big habit that has really worked is to keep enough of money and just about enough money as emergency corpus, and not have too much money in the bank.
And now you've become the person that tells other people you should have started 10 years ago.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think that was probably the trigger to start the business because I just felt that nobody was really paying attention to looking at what other investors needed to do and when they needed to do it. And of course, there was a lot of jargon and confusion being sold so that you say, okay, just tell me where to sign. We said, no, let's spend some time and educate people.
Yeah, no, it's super important to start early. So now let's go into the nitty-gritties, right? I think the top question that anyone always has is they've got an income, a monthly income, but how much of that should they be saving?
Yeah, so there is no one-size-fit answer for this. There is a thumb rule that says 50, 30, 20, at least 20% of your income you should save.
Okay.
But it will not work out for everybody. And the simple answer is that it's important to understand how much do you actually need to take care of your essential expenses.
Okay.
When you have this number clearly known, then this is how much I can put aside as my savings or investments. Right? It can be 30% for somebody. It can be, we have seen our clients spending 70-80% of their income as well. So identifying how much do you need to take care of your essential expenses becomes the first and foremost step.
Okay.
And then diligently setting aside the rest towards investments is critical. So pay yourself first and then you start spending.
Yeah, fair enough. Agreed. This is just like an off the cuff question, but how do we feel about keeping a very tight, amount of money in your liquid savings account? Because I feel that a lot of times when you start earning for the first time, this happened with me also, you feel really empowered, right? You've suddenly got your own money to be able to spend. And even if you're saving in investments or, through an FD, whatever it is, when there is money in the account, you always kind of have something to fall back onto. So if there's that one like luxury expense that you suddenly want to buy and you really want it, there's money to just spend on it, right? So how do we feel about keeping that amount very, very tight and limited?
See, the thing is that it's possible for you to go and spend it. It's not that you're going to invest it in something that is really long term and it's stuck and it'll take a long time to get back in your hand. But the way I used to think about it is you keep 1 month expenses in your bank. Okay, you keep the next 3 to 6 months of expenses in a liquid or an arbitrage fund, which means it's accessible, it's not linked to the market, you'll get it in a day or two, but it's available. And that is basically the cushion for the time it would take for you to get another job if you lost one today.
Right.
So if the market is such that, jobs are very easy to get, you're fine with 3 months expenses, okay, leave 3 months. If it's global financial crisis and you think 12 months is needed, up that figure to 12 months. Because what you want to do is your essential expenditure, you don't want to compromise on, you don't want your mood down, particularly when everything else is gloomy. I'm not a fan of keeping a lot of money in the bank. So let's say you had this luxury item that you saw in the store when you visited this weekend.
Yeah.
But if you had that money in your bank, you would swipe your card and buy it. You say, wow, I loved it. Now, great, I'm going to buy it next month or I'm going to buy it next week when I come back. And probably when you come back, that desire is no longer there, right? And at least you don't want to regret having bought something which you could have avoided.
Agreed. Yeah, no, that's very true. Now, I think one more sort of rude awakening that people have when they start, on their financial planning journey is that they sign an offer letter to a great job and the, lakhs per annum number is amazing and it looks good. But then on a monthly basis, all of that is not reaching your hand or your account directly. So how do you suggest taking that into account when you're just getting started?
So I'll start with an example for this, okay? So think of your CTC as a festival hamper.
Okay.
Okay, so you have snacks, you have cookies, you have chocolates, you also have scented candle and a perfume.
Right.
Sounds exciting, right?
Yes, I want to go on holiday.
So when you open it, not everything is usable right away.
Right.
You'll probably eat chocolates, eat cookies, scented candle and perfume, probably you'll keep it aside and use it at later point in time. So is your CTC. Not all the benefits can be realizable at the end of the month, right? Some benefits like your gratuity, your provident funds, and your employee stock option, RSUs, even your bonus, right? So they will be available after a point in time.
Yeah.
So, but still, they are the benefits that you will get. So it's not good to just compare and just look at what I'm going to get at the end of the month. You have to look at the overall benefit that you're going to get, because at the end, those are also your savings, right?
Right.
So that's how you have to compare what are the benefits I'm getting, what is it that I'm getting on a monthly basis, what are the long-term benefits that I'm getting out of my company.
Right. So even take into account the bonus that you're going to get during festival time or all of that kind of stuff into your financial plan. Okay. Interesting. All right. Now, I think there's another sort of myth. I'm going to call this a myth because, we always hear start investing as soon as possible, right? We always hear no amount is a small amount. And yet people have this apprehension when they're starting that, listen, 2,000 rupees is nothing. Like, why would I invest this? I need to wait until I have at least 5,000 or 10,000 to spare for investments every month. Now, is this belief that it should be a large enough corpus valid?
So the first thing is, it doesn't matter how much of money you need to invest, right? Even if it is like 500,000, it's okay as long as you start early. You take that step of investing, right? Because the time is your biggest asset. You have time to build the corpus, and it is going to generate wealth over a period of time. But if you start later at a big corpus or big chunk of investments, time is not in your favor. You're not going to really build a large asset. So it doesn't matter. What is important is right from your first paycheck, start investing. Even if it's a small amount, it's still okay. And as I previously said, upgrade your savings on a periodical basis. Good, whenever you get an income hike, you can upgrade it and invest into asset classes which are tax efficient and beat inflation in the long run. So into those products, if you invest and be consistent, you're going to see a big time wealth creation.
Yeah, so time is literally money in this case.
I mean, I think people should go back to their school and look at what is the formula of amount, principal into 1 plus rate into time, right? And frankly, the amount of money that you're putting in, the time you're invested for, and the rate of return that you're making, all three contribute. Now, what is in your hand? In your hand is the amount that you can put in. So today you can put in 2,000, tomorrow you can make it 5,000, few months later, few years later, it may be 25,000. I think that is one aspect, but I think there's a very subtle aspect of investing and creating wealth which people tend to ignore, which is discipline. Just keeping on doing it consistently helps also a lot more. It sort of gets you habituated to thinking about investing and creating wealth and not about just being empowered and spending the money. So I think that factor also plays a role. So start with whatever is possible, and then if you can increase it. And I don't think, frankly, investments bother about whether it's a round figure or not. So you can do 2,000 rupees a month today. Let's say 4 months later you can do 2,300 rupees a month, increase it. Why wait for when it becomes 3,000, then I will take. So that's, I think, it's something that you should think about.
Yeah, and that's valid, right? I mean, start now. That's the biggest tagline. So we've talked about this a little bit, but when you start budgeting with your clients, right, who are at the start of their financial journeys, I think sometimes it is hard for even us to process what is good spending versus what is wasting money, right? So how do you separate the two and define them?
So let's say there is a big billion day offer or end of year clearance sale where something is available at 80%, 70% discount. You may get tempted to go and buy those accessories because it is available at 80% or 70% off, right? Because you feel that you're missing out an opportunity and you're not thinking whether you really need that item or not. It's basically missing out that opportunity. You end up swiping the card and buying it, and probably you're not going to use it for a long time. So I would say wasteful spending is basically, you feel good at that moment, but after a point in time, after a few days, you're going to regret that purchase, right? It's that impulsive behavior of going and grabbing something out of opportunity, right? So that's wasteful spending. Now, let's look at good spending. We can get away with friends or, where you feel energized and you come back to work refreshed. Or from your first paycheck, you're gifting something to your parents where you feel proud of yourself, or you going and joining a book club or gym membership, where there is a personal growth happening, right? So here there's very less chance of you feeling regret at a later point in time, right? There is a personal growth. There could be baggage of emotions you feel when you do a good spending. So what is important is whenever you want to swipe a card, first you think, can I wait for some more days to do that purchase? If yes, then probably after a week, if you still feel that I need to buy this, probably the probability of that being a wasteful spending might be lesser. But after a week, you don't want to purchase that, then it would have been a wasteful spending.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in this rule of just like waiting. Just see if like even in a day you feel the same urge that you have to own this thing, and if you don't, then just don't spend the money on it.
So I think as long as you know what the amount you're keeping aside for that, it's fine. And I think there is, as long as you are also able to introspect and say, okay, I went and did this. This was wasteful. This is what I'm going to do so that I don't repeat this again. That would be fine. So I think make 1 or 2 mistakes, but small ones, and learn from them.
That don't hurt the portfolio. Absolutely. Wait, now I have a question. Has there been like one wasteful spending moment in both of your lives that you're like, I will never repeat this again?
Yes, I do that. Whenever I go to Hamley's store, all my childhood fantasies I end up buying for my kids.
Yeah.
And my kids to hardly play with it. So it's my fantasy.
As long as you're playing with it, it's fine, right?
What about you?
I think there are areas in which I tend to splurge, and there are areas where I will be very, very conservative. So I think it's even a simple thing like travel. If I'm traveling on a flight, I want comfort.
Yeah.
But if I grew up in Mumbai, so I'm giving that as an example. But if I go to Mumbai and I want to travel, I am very comfortable hopping onto a bus and traveling, or a local train there. So I think even in one particular item head, you will tend to have extremes, is what I think.
Variations, yeah. So, okay, this is something I've always been on the fence about, because I don't think I truly understand the relevance of a credit score, right? In the context of one's financial planning journey, right? We hear about the importance of building a good one. There were all of those ads, I think, for 2 years that were just on our screens telling us, listen, this is what you got to do. But why do we have to do it? I think that's a question we should answer.
So I think in the olden days, nobody bothered about credit score because the belief was you should not borrow, live within your means, etc. Now you are, of course, thrown saying buy now, pay later. And I think the thing is that for a credit score, you do not know when you require to borrow money. And at that stage, you need access and you want the rates to be, as economical or lower as possible.
Right.
So it could be that you want to borrow for a housing loan. It could be for a vehicle that you're purchasing, right? At that stage, you don't want a situation where, oh, excuse me, you've gone overboard on your credit card spending, you've never paid bills on time, you've defaulted on something or the other, which you didn't think of as loan. You said, of course, this is my card, it's my plastic, got my name on it. I can swipe it whenever I want. And they said, yeah, pay only 5%. So I keep rotating it. So I'll end up, building a negative score there because I'm living beyond my means.
What about the people who just don't even work on credit though? Because then also you're not building a score.
So if you never need to borrow, I don't think it's relevant, right? I don't know. Are there situations where you think a credit score is relevant? No, I don't know. I don't think there is a need if you're not borrowing.
Got it. So it's something you build to keep on hand. Okay.
And there is a belief so that, people say that it's good to leverage. There is some things which are good to leverage and do. Of course, it's a bad idea to borrow and say, now I will do futures and options trading. So, stay away from that, definitely.
Yeah.
And I remember early on in my, in my business, there were times I had to advise people they would have a chunk of money to invest. And I would say, no, the first thing you're doing is paying off this credit card loan.
Yeah.
Or the recommendation would be that please go and take a personal loan to pay off the credit card outstanding because it do not have enough money to, pay it off. And credit card borrowings, over time then ramp up to 35-40% per annum. So even an 18% per annum personal loan was attractive. In those days it was 18, it's now come down. But yeah, so we used to advise them that no, take the personal loan, knock it off, and then have a plan of how I'm going to knock off the personal loan.
Yeah, so the thing is, for young people today, they are living in this situation of buy now, pay later, right? So they're constantly being advised or encouraged to, make the purchase, buy the home, all of that at a very young age. Now, in such a situation, if someone wants to go about it, in a planned, healthy way, what would be the steps that you recommend to build a good credit score early on without falling into debt, because no one wants that trap?
So start small, have a low limit credit card to begin with. Okay, use it only for your essential expenses like grocery, OTT subscription, internet bills, something like that, and pay entire amount whenever there is a bill due. Pay the entire amount outstanding. Don't carry forward don't just pay the basics and carry forward the rest, because you're going to pay interest onto it.
Yes.
Right? So that is the most important thing. Then limit yourself to 30 to 40% of the limit of credit card. I'll give you with an example. Let's say the credit limit is 1 lakh. Spend the credit card only to the extent of 30,000 to 40,000. Don't go beyond that. So that is going to help you build the score. Okay. And then, keep checking your CIBIL score on annual basis, so that in case if the score is less, you can work on it before you go and take a home loan, because your credit score is going to determine the rate of interest that you're going to pay on your home loan.
Right. Okay. Yeah, those are some very simple and easy to execute steps. I would like to add that. It's not always as hard as we make it out to be in our head. And now, the final question for both of you, the one that everybody wants to know. What is financial freedom? I think everyone has their own definition of it. When you're starting off investing as a young person, I think sometimes you tend to work on short-term goals, right? You say, okay, over the next 5 years, I want to build this number of corpus. Over the next 10, a lot of us are not even thinking about our retirement planning, which is, something that, again, we are now being slowly encouraged to think about the long term. So how do you help your clients define financial freedom at an early stage? And is it a definition that keeps on changing, is what I'm curious about. Navya?
Financial freedom basically for me is my future is sorted and my present is peaceful. Like I have an option to, let's say, quit a job or take a sabbatical or start something on my own. I don't have to worry about my children's future, because I know it's taken care of. All my retirement, it's there, it's sorted. And I have an option to take that risk of, starting something on my own. Right? That, according to me, is financial freedom. So how you can achieve that is, as I told you earlier, start early. Even with small steps, you can really build a huge wealth over a period of time. Make sure that you upgrade your savings. There are a couple of things that people can do in their early 20s to reach there. Right? So one is that. And then, make sure your family is protected by taking adequate life insurance and health insurance coverage, because that is very important. And then invest into asset classes which are tax efficient and beats inflation in the long term. So these are a few things that you are being very consistent, regular, and upgrade your savings and follow these steps. And most importantly, get your financial plan done, because that will give you more clarity as to in what direction you have to go with your finances in terms of achieving your goals. Because it will give you an understanding that where you are today and how much you need to do further to reach towards your financial freedom.
No, that's very true. I think having a plan in place just gives you a rough structure to start with. And of course, the little pieces keep moving, but it's important to have an idea of what at least you want. How do you usually define it, Loba?
I think it has changed over time. And what I see is that as people move through different life stages, their definition changes. So in the beginning, it's of course a lot to do with as you mentioned, that when you're younger, you're looking at really shorter term objectives, and you say, oh, I achieved it, so I'm feeling free. And then you suddenly realize, oh, now I've got married, so I have to worry about some other thing. And then it is, oh, now the children, I have to worry about other things, and so forth, right? Along with this, what happens is the education around and the communication and the media around that's playing out also contribute to your thinking, oh, I never thought of this, that I could have done X, or, gone for flying lessons, and how much do I need for that? Then that will give me freedom. So people have different, I think, connotations of this freedom.
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't think it's a number. It's a conversation. It's, write it in whatever language you're comfortable, English, Hindi, Kannada, Gujarati, whatever. And that's what it will mean to you. It's very different from you versus me, and it's not a number. It's not 10 crore, 20 crore, 50 crore, 100 crore. I don't think that's financial freedom.
Right. So it's basically what you perceive it to be first, and then the number attached to it. I don't know.
So obviously it's the two words, there is finance involved and there's freedom involved. So what is it that's not tying you down to money, or linking what you're doing with the money? Oh, if I did this, then I'm being paid X rupees per hour. So if I did 3 times the hour, then I will get 3 times the amount. So if I'm focusing like that,
Right.
then I'm thinking that you're not financially free, because you are saying I'm dependent on that income flow to come in. Right? At some stage, you get to that stage where you say, okay, this is not the big thing. So just imagine you're starting to work. There is some earning, and then you're using that money to start investing. So the amount that you're earning versus the investment, in the initial stage, the earning will be higher than the investment. And over time, this will move.
Right.
And then you start saying, okay, this is not so important. So as they say, take care of roti, kapda, makan, and the rest is, surplus. So now I can say, okay, I want to go and, hire a limousine for the day, because that will give me or some family member a thrill. So, okay, let me do it. So that could be freedom for that day.
Yeah.
Right. So things like that, I would say.
Nice. Well, I think today's episode has given us a lot of insight into, how to get started and how to do it right. So I hope that you found all of these strategies and these tips really very, very useful, and that you have a good time applying them, because I think, there is a lot of joy in having a good financial plan and seeing it through. Thank you so much, Navya. Thank you so much, Lovai, for helping the youth. This is a very important episode. We'll catch you on the next one.
That was an episode of the Simply Lovai podcast series. Expert with a Heart.